Welcome, everybody. I guess this was my cue. Now that the music stopped, my name is Peter Pannes from McKinsey. I'm part of the European leadership team of our LGBTIQ network at McKinsey called GLAM. And I'm very happy to welcome all of you to this joint get-together. It's still a virtual get-together. We all wished we could be together in one room or at least under one roof. But unfortunately, at this point, it's still wiser to have such a large gathering in virtual reality. When we talked about having this first get-together, I remember that Yannicka, Jeanette, Ralph, and myself, we were talking and we were saying, what could be a topic for this get-together? And we said, well, let's face it, if we look around, the T in LGBTIQ is too silent. And we said, let's pick this topic because we all feel passionately about it. And we feel that there is room to grow awareness and to grow the understanding of what the T in LGBTIQ means. And it's not an abstract letter, and we will see in a moment, it's about people, it's about their stories, it's about sharing. And I'm very happy that we have this open dialogue today. We have two incredible panelists that I'm going to introduce to you in a moment. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit of my background, because before McKinsey, I was at another company. And I remember I was heading the LGBTIQ network there. And I went to our German CEO and said, look, we're going to do this event and we're going to do this and that. And he said, well, by the way, what's the T in LGBT? And I said, okay, here starts the problem. You don't even know. And he said, but we don't have any here at our company, do we? And I said, I mean, to be honest, with 5,000 people in Germany, I said, I think we do have people, but we don't know. And that's part of the problem. And I said, even if we have people, we don't give them the feeling that they can come out, that they can talk to us, that they should find a place that can help them on their journey, or that they want to be open about it. So I said, let's do something about it. And now here's a chance together in this virtual room. We have two fabulous panelists whom we could win to present today or to talk to us. We have Sarah Ungar. She has worked in HR departments in many large industrial companies such as ThyssenKrupp and Rolls-Royce for over 15 years. She has received already several awards for her commitment to the LGBTQ+ community. And today, Sarah is here as a representative of the PrOUT Executives list, where she was most recently on the 4th place, which I think is a great achievement and is also the reason why we said, let's get this group together, because for the first time in this PrOUT Executives list, we had representatives of the T in LGBTIQ. And so we're very happy to have you here, Sarah, today. And our second panelist is Sandra Falmer. She's the chairwoman for finance and HR at 1&1 Mail and Media Applications. She's also passionate about creating open dialogue and about creating a dialogue about diversity and inclusion. And also she's supporting the internal company initiatives around promotion of women in management positions. And as I said, when we spoke shortly before this webcast, it's great that I can introduce you, but it's even better that you're here and that you can tell us in your own words and about your own journey. And so I'm handing over to Yannicka, who will be our fabulous presenter for this panel. And then let's dive right into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter, and hello, everybody. My name is Yannicka. I have the privilege of partnering with PrOUT at Google in Germany. And I have also the privilege of moderating today's panel discussion. And as a heads up to everybody, I'm going to be starting out this panel discussion with some questions that we have prepared and that we were going to put forward to Sandra and Sarah. But we also want to invite all of you to ask the question that are top of mind for you. So if there is something that you're really, really interested in knowing, I'm going to call on the audience in a little while to unmute and raise your question, or if you feel more comfortable doing this, you can also paste it in the chat. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining today's panel discussion, and most big thank yous go out to you, Sandra and Sarah. It's a true honor to have you here with us today. And as Peter mentioned, both of you were voted into the top 5 of the PrOUT Executive or PrOUT Executive list of this year. Congratulations. And one thing that all of us noticed, if I look at the previous years, as Peter said, there were not many trans people on the list, or none of trans people. We were so excited to finally see people on this list, and if I remember correctly, 3 out of the top 5 are from the trans community, which is great. If, however, we look at the full list, the trans representation is considerably smaller. Nonetheless, how do you view this? Do you think this is an indication that something is changing, that there's more acceptance? Let's start out with you, Sarah. What's your view on this?
Yes, of course. So, first of all, I would like to say thank you to everyone here who participates in this call and spent some time in getting an insight in this topic and making the team more visible, like Peter mentions. And thanks a lot for your kind words and your introduction and your congrats. So, yes, I think there is a change in recent years. So we see many more people coming out on all levels and in all, let's say, kind of industries like media as well, for example, but also in more traditional industries like my ones or the ones where I worked. And there are, I think, more visible role models for others. Yeah? And I think this really makes a difference, and that people can be proud of whom they are. And this is also maybe a change, because when I think back to my coming out, and we will come back to this later, I think it was a little bit difficult to find a role model. So there was none, in fact. And then I thought, okay, then I have to be maybe the first one. I mean, it got somehow viral, so I received so many media inquiries for interviews and other things that I was a little bit overwhelmed, and it was in my time at ThyssenKrupp, and I was happy that everything went so positive in that time, and I think this really gave me, but also others, a very nice drive and another good motivation, and I know that also board members and some others used that as an example, and this was in fact what I wanted to be, an example, and ending up now as an example on the PrOUT Executives list as well. I think it's also a great appreciation getting this chance as well, and giving something back to the community, because of course I did not do everything by myself. It's always a community with support by so many others, and I think maybe this is a kind of conclusion why more trans people, or at least trans people now, are on that list.
Thanks a lot for the bravery. It always takes a lot of courage to become the role model. So thank you very much, Sarah. Over to you, Sandra. In terms of lack of role models or now becoming a role model, what's your view?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for being here and for the invitation. To you, Janica, Peter, and Janet. Well, fully agree with Sarah. For me, also, role model really played a very crucial role in my coming out. Like Sarah said, I always was thinking, okay, people, trans people having their outing, they are not executives, that's a different thing. But that was cinema in my head, that's wrong. It doesn't matter on which level you are. And in the end, to get to this insight, it helped me to experience Anastasia Bifang, Tessa Ganserer, and all that role models to see and experience and say, hey, if they can do that, why, Sandra, you can't? And that initiated really a process. When I had my inner personal coming out, it really was then much more about how do I have my professional coming out, and not whether or whether not. So definitely agree. And one other word, I think the awareness in general is raising, specifically in the business context. Organizations like PrOUT at Work, like Chartered at Vielfalt, they really help to create this awareness. And this helps to talk to other people about LGBTIQ in general, and to reflect, to initiate them to reflect themselves about the relationship with us as a community, but also about their mindset with us. And it brings you into discussions. So I had lots of discussions with people saying, hey, I saw you on that list. Tell me more. What exactly is it being transgender? What's your story? Blah, blah, blah. And that helps to to avoid basically roadblocks between the non-LGBTIQ people and the LGBTIQ people.
Very well put. And Sandra, you mentioned that that was very crucial for your own coming out, that there were role models to which you could look to. What else was crucial for you in your coming out? What kind of support was really, really helpful for you in your journey?
To be honest, the first thing which was the most crucial for me was 100% certainty for myself that I'm really transgender. I mean, that sounds crazy, I know, but think about that. You're born and you're not born with a sticker on your forehead saying, hey, congrats, you're transgender. That's not the way. So when you experience you're different, you find out, for me that was in the age of 18, 19, hey, you could be transgender. But I experienced simultaneously, oh, that's a difficult journey. And my inner myself then said, oh, no, you are not transgender. That's too difficult, forget it. And that took some years, too much years. And with the age of around about 40, I got this certainty. And that was very crucial for me. That was the most crucial. But you're right. What was the next one? Well, then for me, that was about getting comfortable with my new self, with my new role. And what does it mean? Body changes, like get rid of the facial hair, grow your head hair, your hairstyle, get a female hairstyle, hormones and stuff like that. Sounds quite technical, but believe me, running in that world with a wig or something like that, not very nice. So that's the reason why that was crucial for me in the professional life. And then the third thing was getting the backup and the support of my family, of my loved ones, of my friends. Because I always had in mind, hey, what about if you fail in business context? Imagine you fail in business context and you have no backup, you have nobody who could talk about blah, blah, blah. So for me, it was quite crucial to do the private outing first and make sure everything is settled there, and then do the business outing. And when it came to the business outing and I had my plan for my body changes, it was much about communication. So to whom do I talk first? That was my supervisory board, then to my board members, my board colleagues, to my direct reports, to my teams, and then to the whole company. To have that plan, and what do you tell to whom? How do you tell to people? I mean, we had Corona at that time, so there was no real meeting. It was, in the best case, it was digital meetings. How do you do that in a digital world? And that was very much about what occupied me for some years, and the professional outing itself took me a year. The preparation and the communication, all in all, was around about a year.
Thank you very much for sharing, giving us an inside view into the different phases of your journey. Sarah, I want to pull you back into the conversation. I mean, we heard from Sandra the time between the inner outing, the professional outing, and the personal outing, and then the professional outing. Was that something that you've experienced as well, that it happened in these stages?
Somehow, yes. I think I realized very early, I think maybe at an age of 7 or something like that, that I was different, or that I am different. And so this was a little bit earlier. And then I had some strategies trying to, let's say, avoid this, and which is somehow quite typical. And I think when I started to work with 24, something like that, after I graduated, I thought, okay, I will risk my job when I come out now. And then I changed my job after 3 years and became head of HR with 27, something like that. So I think I was the youngest HR head at ThyssenKrupp in that time. And I thought, okay, now it's even more risky to come out. But then there was a time when I had a lot of pressure due to some parallel projects, and also an M&A project, which I was leading as a kind of project lead over all disciplines, not only HR. And I realized, and also received the feedback from some friends, that it became even more difficult to balance all these let's say, open topics. Yeah, and then I thought, okay, I need to at least close one topic or drive one forward. And find a good solution. And this was then the easiest one was in fact then the coming out. But of course, I prepared maybe half a year or a year for this as well. And as Sandra just described, I mean, the foundation I think was first the private life, friends and family, and building their kind of community. And second, I made a list with people, I think 30 or 40 people in my company, and also in my broader environment, professional environment. And the first ones then on the list were those ones from whom I expected positive feedback or support. You know? So like this, I went through that list. Of course, my own employees and team members were quite high ranked on that list, because what was more important, in fact, to get their support than the support of my supervisor. And I think it was a similar situation like with Sandra in that time, because I was, in fact, the most visible person in the company besides the CEO. So everyone, hopefully everyone knew the CEO, and in fact, nearly everyone in the company out of 300 employees knew me. And so I also had to think about how I should inform the entire workforce, all employees within the company. And in fact, I did it with a simple 2-sentence email, yeah, because I did not want to go into deeper explanations about this to justify my decision or something like. But I just wanted to explain this very briefly, that from tomorrow, Sarah Ungar, the same person, will take care of the HR staff here, and I'm happy to answer all your questions, and I'm very much looking forward to working with you, and my new contact details are XYZ. And that's it. And I think I received then 5 or 6 positive emails, and that was on a Tuesday, I think, and on a Wednesday I came back to the office, and a little bit different, of course, but everything else was still the same. I continued with all my other topics, and I did not want to make such a big thing out of it, because it makes it also easier for the environment. Yeah, if you do not make this somehow special, and yeah, I remember very well that day because I received a flower bucket from my team and warm welcomes from many others. So yeah, besides this, everything else was let's say very ordinary, average day somehow.
I love the brevity of your email announcement, and for the Googlers participating in this video conference, we have the opportunity to share some emojis. Unfortunately, they're only visible to people dialing in from a Google account, but I can assure you, Sarah, when you talked about the email that you sent out, there were lots of emojis flying on the screen, a lot of support for the brevity in your announcement. You started talking about the way that you prepared for your outing. I mean, you talked about the list that you made and how you approach people individually. Can you maybe share a little bit more on this, also in terms of tips for the LGBTQ+ community? What can we do in this kind of situation? And maybe there were also a few surprises along the way, people you have classified wrongly in the list. Could you talk a little bit about this, maybe?
Of course, yeah. I mean, there were people which were highly supportive, and I didn't expect this, and vice versa somehow. And also, of course, in my private environment. Yeah, I mean, this is a specific and very special situation, I think, to everyone. Yeah, and some people are able to deal with it quite well, and some others don't. And it's more than, let's say, an ordinary change, of course. Yeah, and I think this we have to realize, and what was very important for me was I tried at the beginning, I tried to convince, in fact, everyone, and I tried to keep everyone in my circle of friends, and still to collaborate with everyone in the same way like I did in the past. But there's a point when you realize that you cannot convince everyone, and that some people just don't want to continue this journey with you. Yeah. They maybe are worried about the change, or they can't deal with it, or whatever. So I just realized that some people did not want to go on the change journey together with me, and then you have to leave these people and to let them like they are, and do not put any effort in convincing them, because it's not worth to look to those ones who maybe have negative emotions about this. It's even more worth to look to those ones and to spend energy on which are more positive, and I can tell you these were really the majority. So this was a surprise that most feedbacks I directly received were very, very positive. And in fact, there were not so many negative experiences, not at least within my office. Of course, I had some negative experiences sometimes in the public when people are watching you and taking pictures and these things. So this was not really a nice experience, or even did some more negative things. So fortunately, this did not happen so often, but it happened, and this is of course something very rude and very negative, and this really hit me. But within the professional environment, of course, I had some negative experiences, which I don't want to share now. But the majority was really positive, and I think it's important to look for allies, within the LGBTIQ community, but also outside the community, and really to look for allies supporting you. I think this is important.
Oh, thank you very much, Sarah. Go ahead, Sandra.
Yeah, my experience in one specific case was a little bit different, and that's something I want to share. Maybe that helps to some of you. In one of my private outings to friends living quite far away, I thought about do it the classic style and send a yellow post letter, handwritten letter, and explain to people what happened basically. And I agree with Sarah, if you explain too much, that doesn't help very much. But my lessons learned out of that was something different. It was much more about, if people don't experience you as a trans person, there's too much question about what's that, how does it really look like, how is he now experiencing, or how will I now experience him, and stuff like that. And I by purpose say him. And whenever I did out myself live as a person, I had no issues. I convinced everybody in the end. And it does not mean that it was a walk in the park, but I lost none of them. So my conclusion for the professional outing, and that would be my recommendation, was do not send email at all. Try to talk to people in person, but okay, even at one-on-one, we are 9,000 people, so that's impossible. So for the big chunk of the majority of the people, try to send a video message, and I did that. I did produce a video message, 3 minutes, 1 minute, 1.5 minutes in my old role, so that people know who I am. I let them, hey, look, it's blah, 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 what you need to know about me. I'm transgender. That does mean I feel as a woman. And from after the vacation, so I did it before Christmas 2019. So after Christmas 2019, so in the beginning of 2021, sorry, I mixed it 1 year up. In the beginning of 2021, I will appear as Sandra as a woman. And then there was a cut, and I appeared on the screen as Sandra. I said, hey, welcome, here's your new CFO, Sandra. I'm very proud to be part of the company, blah, 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 blah. And that worked more than well. So I got hundreds of mails as a feedback on that, and there was none of that was negative. And I wouldn't go so far to say everybody was crazy and in love with me. No, not at all. But I can really say in the last 9 months, I didn't have any bad experience. So maybe I haven't touched base with that, people who are not behind me, but I haven't seen them yet. And So all in all, my conclusion, and that's what also people report to me, is they tell me and say, hey, the way how you communicated that was brilliant. I haven't seen anybody doing that better. So my strong recommendation would be, for me that worked, think about whether that could work for anybody else as well.
Thank you very much to both of you for sharing the way that you came out to your professional organization, to the company with which you work, and the tips that you're sharing. Personally, I find this extremely helpful. I have one question towards you, Sandra, one more time. Is you mentioned that there was a time lapse between your inner outing, when you then outed yourself, to your personal or private environment, and then to your professional environment. What could we, or what could have allies done to help you shorten the time between these different moments? Like, is there anything that you want to give to the audience that, please, this is something by which you can help the trans community?
Good question. I think in the end, the help could have been to make me aware about other role models, to encourage me to get professional support in support groups, for example. So if I think, why did I have my inner outing? And what made the difference? I mean, I lived for 20 years, like Sarah did, and I also lived for, even she did it in a shorter period of time, and it took me much longer than her. But I lived quite a lot of time in between. So am I really transgender? What else could I be? Blah, blah, blah. And when I touched base with a support group, that gave me the confidence. I'm talking to others, how did they experience, and getting basically the proof that I am one of them, that they all have the same journey, the same story. That helped me for my inner outing. And then, like, coming back to your question, from the inner outing to the professional outing, it was very much about role models. So to answer your question, I think it could have been others to make me aware of executive role models. And that happened by accident to me. So some went, so Tessa Ganserer, Anastasia Bifang, I met with Valerie Schnitzer, and people like that. And that pushed me in my professional outing.
Good point. I mean, we spoke about the value or the need for role models also at the very beginning of our conversation. And one thing that we've discussed within the PrOUT at Google communities, we were quite surprised to not find any trans men on the list of PrOUT executives that were honored in 2021. We found trans women, which we applauded, but we were wondering, why were there no trans men on the list? Sarah, have you thought about this and put in any ideas? Is there a difference maybe in societal support?
Yeah, I mean, maybe before answering that question, I would briefly emphasize on what Sandra also said. I mean, I really loved, or I really love the idea with the video statement. It's really great to hear this. And I think it really depends on the audience you have. Yeah, so at Google and at McKinsey and at 1&1 and other companies, it can be different. I mean, we had, for example, a population of refractory bricklayers, yeah, who are working on site, who are building refractories and these things. So they are really, let's say, very hands-on without email access and these things. So it needs maybe a different kind of communication to attract them. This is maybe a recommendation to everyone who thinks about this. Think who is your targeted audience and which communication channels you should use then, and then just go for it. Yeah, so I think keep it simple can also help. So short messages, like 3 minutes videos in total, I think are quite helpful. So yeah, and answering your question, maybe there are trans men on the list. Maybe we just don't know because they are not out in public. Maybe this can be also a reason. But I think there might be several reasons for this. Yeah, maybe also because trans men sometimes can live more stealth than trans women. Yeah, because I mean, usually many of us as trans women can be still identified as a person with a trans background, and very often trans men are, or do have a better passing. This can be also a reason. Maybe there are less trans men on these ranks, or maybe they did not apply. So there can be really several reasons for this. But as said, there can be a trans man on the list just without the label on him.
That's a really good point, Sarah. Thank you very much. It's 4:30 German time. I want to give everybody also the opportunity to raise questions. So if you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask a question live, or if you feel more comfortable, please feel free to use the chat symbol in the lower right and ask a question. Until you do so, I'm going to continue asking my question. I have lots of them prepared, but if there is one, and I see Niklas, you are unmuting yourself. So go ahead, Niklas. What's your question?
Maybe first of all, Niklas from the Cologne office from McKinsey here. So thanks a lot to Peter, everyone from McKinsey, and of course from Google for making this happen. And biggest thanks, of course, to Sandra and Sarah. I have two questions. The first would be, do you have any recommendation for a blog or a YouTube channel to inform myself about transgender people, issues, etc.? Because I value this talk, especially because I'm getting great impressions, and I feel like in my personal circle, I don't have that. So I'm seeking great, authentic experience, so to say. And second question would be, because we have elections coming up in Germany, maybe from a political point of view, are there any laws or any changes you would hope to see in society that would ease transgender people coming out, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Niklas, for asking the first questions. Sandra, you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, so specifically the second question, Niklas, you pressed my button, the law thing. To officially become a woman or a man, sorry, to change gender officially, sorry. In Germany is also still regulated by the Transsexuellengesetz, also the transsexual law, and that is out of the 80s. And for example, I think in the year 2011, 2011, sorry, the court, the top court in Germany, they need a law which said if a man or a woman wants to change gender, he needs to get divorced first. I mean, imagine, and I'm married, so that would have meant if I had my coming out and my change 10 years ago, I would have get divorced from my wife. I can't imagine to do that. I mean, that's crazy. So yes, I think there's quite a lot need for change. For example, my official name change took me half a year and 1,500 euro for a stupid, court process. And I needed 2 professional certificates, also Gutachten from psychotherapeuten and psychiater. So I don't know the English word of that. And that was just crazy. I mean, I didn't fall ill, and nevertheless, I'd go to such guys and tell them everything about myself in several Sitzungen, also several meetings. I mean, that's crazy. On the other hand, I also agree there should be somehow a barrier and a professional oversee coaching advice, because gender change is nothing you do, let's do it. It's Friday today, let's do it. I mean, it should be something you're really serious about, and finding that sweet spot, that balance between having 100% certainty and the over judgment and the overruling which we have nowadays. That would be my great appeal to the politicians to change that. And I watched their discussions in the parliament in Germany, and it's just it's so awful and so disturbing if you see how they talk about you, that I really admire people like Tessa Ganserer, who is part of the Green Party and for sure is pushing such discussions, and is encouraging that again and again and again, that hopefully that is changing very soon, but it doesn't look like it.
Thank you, Sandra. From your perspective, Sarah, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, maybe first, before I forget to answer the first question regarding the blog, I mean, I'm not so well into YouTube and these things regarding trans content, but regarding blogs or internet resources, I mean, I like the page of Lena Balk. I think it's transsexualität.info. I also like, for example, resources like Stonewall or like Out Leadership, I think, in the US, or like the Human Rights Campaign. At least they have a bigger link resource. Of course, in Germany, then the LSVD, for example, or some other communities like DGTI.org, I think, like the Deutsche Gesellschaft für Transidentität and Intersexualität, and there are also some several resources. On my way, I tried to skip these resources because I did not want to be influenced by others. Yeah, I wanted to find my own way. So I really tried to find my own way without being impacted by others, because some are telling really horrible stories and some are maybe too optimistic and these things, and I wanted to find it my own way and my own confirmation. Regarding the political thing, I'm not really independent because I'm a member of the Social Democrats Party and I'm also a board member of the so-called SPD Queer, which is a official working group within the party, and so I was somehow involved in that discussions regarding new laws and these things, especially this year or in the last 2 and 3 years. And I strongly agree what Sandra mentioned. I mean, it took me, I think, 9 months until I got that court decision on my gender identity and the name change. And I think I paid more than 2,500 euros. And this was really a strange thing. So you can't plan with it. And if you are an official in a company, for example, like a board member, or like I was, I had Procura in that time, so I was officially allowed to sign for the company, and this was registered at the court. So for changing this, that the footnote is changed then on the official letters of the company, you really need this decision, yeah. And this was a little bit strange, and in that a period when I did not have the court decision at hand, I asked my employees to put only my surname there without putting Sarah or my old male name in front, and I just signed with Ungar, and then it was pretty fine for PwC or EY or whoever proved us in that time that I did it like this. Yeah, but sometimes you just need to find your way. But regarding the rest, I strongly agree. I think it needs a more progressive decision here on a new law. There were, I think, from the federal court in Germany, 7 decisions on the transgender law. So the decision in 2011 affected 2 things, so the obligation for surgeries and the marriage, and there were some other decisions in the past as well. So it really needs a new regulation, a new legislation here.
Thank you, Sarah. And to your question, Niklas, during the course of this discussion, the name Anastasia was dropped several times, and there's an awesome movie about her story. It's called Ich bin Anastasia, I am Anastasia. It's available on most streaming platforms, and I think this is also a good point of reference if you want to learn more and get more involved. There's a question from the audience. Thank you, Babel, for using the chat function. And I'm going to hand this to you, Sandra. There's a question on what do you expect from an ally in a business context? What would be helpful from allies to help you in the coming out, but also in your day-to-day life?
As during the coming out process, it's definitely being coach, basically. I mean, I had such allies when shortly before I had my professional coming out, so it was 2 months before, a good colleague of myself, also a board member, asked me, "Hey Sandra, may I ask you a question? How do you feel?" And I said, "What do you mean?" "Well, I can feel you're different somehow." And I said, "Hey, I'm still in the role of a man. Can you experience the truth?" "Yes, I can." So I did spontaneously outing myself to him. And he was a good coach then to me. So when it was about, hey, what would be your sequence of the communication cascade? To whom do I talk first? He coached me. He was an opinion leader. He told me his opinion on my thoughts. And that helped me very much somehow. Then the second would be, like I said before, making aware of role models, but also maybe making aware of professional help within the company. I mean, in my case, I am responsible for HR in my company. So if I would have talked to HR, I would have talked to my team. That was quite a bit difficult for me, in my brain at least. Giving their different opportunities, maybe group HR person or something like that, that would or could have helped me also. So I think at least should help making aware, be a coach, and maybe also help to engage with role models, also close gaps basically.
Thank you very much. Again, I see many emojis in our video conference. A lot of plus ones to your suggestion. Sarah, if I can hand over to you, one question or one concern that's for many LGBTQ plus people, no matter what letter you represent in the acronym, is top of mind, is the possible impact on your career if you out yourself. And I was wondering if you can enlarge a little bit more, expand on this. To what extent do you feel that your coming out has impacted your career? You mentioned you're the most known person outside of the CEO, but do you feel anything else that has changed on account of your coming out?
I mean, meanwhile, I changed my job and I moved to another company. Yeah, so hopefully I'm not the most visible person besides the CEO in the new company, because only here in my business area, nearly 11,000 people are working. What changed? I mean, from the positive side, for example, I think I was perceived more authentic and with more energy or positive energy and these things. And I think this was the feedback I received from many people. Yeah, but on the other side, it can become even more difficult if you want to change your job, if you want to go to another company. It still can be a disadvantage, and that you are maybe perceived as less professional. But my competencies did not change. I think I'm even more engaged and meanwhile, I did also an MBA and I graduated with honors from a top business school. But sometimes I have the impression that for maybe some companies this does not count. If you are a trans person or openly belonging to the LGBTIQ community, then you are perceived as less competent. This can happen, and to be honest, this happened to me minimum once when I wanted to change my job some years ago, and this was really a quite of horrible experience in that time. Yeah, but this is anyway past, and I'm happy, and I want to concentrate more on those opportunities I got, I was also happy 3 years ago that I was able to choose between, I think, 3 or 4 different opportunities where I want to go. That a trans topic did not play any role in the recruitment processes. And usually on that levels where we are, many people are involved in these processes. Yeah, this is not only HR, there's also a CFO, a CEO, a supervisory board, maybe even with whom you speak. So you have to convince different stakeholders, different levels, maybe even the co-determination, and so on and so forth. And I was very happy that it did not play a role at all, because I want to be seen for my profession, for my professional experience, and for the things I can bring to the company. Yeah? And of course, my personal experience has an impact on this, but this should not be the main point. Yeah. So in general, I would say it had a positive impact because playing a role like I played in that time a year ago or more than a year ago, playing a role until I I will be retired. It's just not possible. You don't have the energy. And I wanted to bring my full energy to the job, to my profession, to my people, and this was the most important for me.
Thank you very much for sharing, Sarah. I'd be interested in understanding how you're dealing with these kind of situations where you're experiencing biases, if not flat out discrimination. But before I follow up on this, there's an audience question, which I'm going to take first. Jeanette, do you want to come on mute and briefly ask a question?
Yeah, thanks, Jannika. I have a question, Sarah. As Sandra, you mentioned your double life before you came out. Did coming out have an impact on your job performance because you could bring your whole self to work? And can you tell us about the struggles of a double life? I can imagine being from Friday to Sunday another person, then from Monday to Friday. Like, how is it? What were your struggles?
I mean, maybe I try to answer first. So, I mean, regarding the, let's say, organizational struggles, this was really a quite complicated thing. Yeah. So usually my agenda was somehow flexible. So sometimes an appointment took longer than I expected in the office, and then I could get out of the office later than expected. Did not have the opportunity to change my role to meet my friends, and then my friends got somehow confused, yeah, seeing me once in that role and then the other time in another role. And so this was really difficult to balance this and to handle this, especially during the week. And of course, you are always aware if you are, let's say, in the female role in that time, when you're not everywhere out, if you are somewhere in the city, and if someone but who is not aware of your double life, if someone sees you, then it can really stress you and create a difficult situation. So this was something I really struggled with, and this made it even more difficult in that time, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that was also something I would like to add. I mean, coming from the question Jannika raised in the beginning, how did it change your professional career? I think there's a positive impact, like Sarah just explained. That's freeing up time, because hiding and changing roles, like Sarah just said, I definitely had the same very difficult experience for 3 years. And changing that role that consumes so much of your time and of your mind, that if you stop doing that and if you just can be who you are, that frees up so much of freedom in your brain and also physical time, that you became, I think, even a much better professional and much more efficient in your professional career than you have been before. And second one I would like to add, which Sarah also described, I can also sign that and agree on that. I had like I said before, no difficult impact in my company in one-on-one. Nevertheless, I also wanted to change and will change the company. That was also part of my plan, because I always say to myself, hey Sandra, even if it's 100% working, and it is 100% working, starting somewhere from scratch where nobody use your old role and only will know you as Sandra, that's definitely an advantage. And that's why during this summer, planned my change, and I will change now, but I exactly made the same experience like Sarah said. Then I had some companies to choose, but there have also been companies, and specifically in environment like Cologne, in areas where I would have thought, okay, people are very open-minded, where I made quite different experience, and people really saying, okay, I believe you as a man would be capable to do that job, but will you be really capable to do that job as a woman? I mean, what a stupid question. Like Sarah said, I didn't lose any of my competence. I just changed my identity. Yeah, okay, it's some rare change. It's a rare change. But nevertheless, how stupid is that? And talk about that and educate people. And I think that's something which I love at that discussion today, to talk about trans. What is it really about? and to make people aware that it is not about getting more stupid or something like that. That is really something which I see as my mein Auftrag. Something I want to do and I want to communicate.
Yeah, I'm still shocked by the example that you've just shared, that people flat out say you can do this as a man, but you cannot. Have doubts that you can do this as a woman. I'm sorry that you had to experience this, both of you. I'd be really interested in understanding on how you respond, maybe not specifically in this situation, but in similar situation where you're confronted with biases or even discriminatory actions. Maybe there's also some kind of tip that you can give us, all of us, how to respond in situations. What has worked well for you?
I mean, people, sorry, is it okay if I start first? I think people in general, the thing you experience, whatever they do, is based on uncertainty quite often. So people don't know how to treat you, how to interact with you, what is transgender, stuff like that. So my recommendation would be raise open question to your counterpart, or ask and say, hey, I feel you are uncertain. How can I help you? What questions do you have to me? I mean, I'm an expert for being transgender. Ask an expert, ask me. How can I help you? And of course, not everybody is encouraged enough to do that. But I get quite a chunk of people who have been encouraged enough, then asked me and raised me questions, and I answered that, hey Sandra, thanks a lot, that really helped me. I completely had a wrong picture of transgender in my mind. I mean, they have Gordon and Mary and all that variety artists in mind, some of them, when they think about transgender. But we are not crazy, we are no artists, we are just people who have been born in the wrong identity, and making people aware of that and talk about that and tell them, hey, look, my capabilities, my competences didn't change, and explain that, why that's the case, and all about that stuff that sometimes help. But I agree, it needs the Bereitschaft, the encouragement of your counterpart to talk to you. If there's a really strong opinion of a phobia, then you have no chance. And then I agree with Sarah, it's not worth to fight against it. Then leave them away and concentrate on the others you can convince.
Thank you. Sarah, anything to add from your side?
Yeah, I just want to add that it depends, I think, on the person. Yeah, so there can be biases within the organization. I think it's easier to deal with it, yeah, because we all have, let's say, a minimum professional level within the company. But there can be also biases outside the organization. So let's say on the street, for example, when people are turning around or these things. Yeah, so if someone is really staring on me with his or her eyes, then I do the same to that person if I realize it, for example, or and then usually that person realizes that she or he's doing something wrong. And it happened once, I think nearly 10 years ago in Düsseldorf, when I realized that someone is turning around behind me, yeah, and then I turned around as well, and I just wanted to ask them if they want an autograph from me, a signature, but they realized then that I realized that they were turning around, and then they just escaped quite quickly. I think it was a woman, an adult woman with her mother. So that was quite funny, yeah, or other experiences, or even negative ones, yeah. So there were three guys taking pictures of me, or I thought that they were taking pictures of me in a cafe, and then I used my smartphone to take a picture from them as well. I thought more or less as a kind of proof if I need the police maybe in that situation, but I forgot that my smartphone was not on silence, and so it made click, and then they heard it, and they stopped immediately talking, and I said, okay, if you do not stop this, and if you do not delete any pictures, I can call the police and we can solve the problem with the police, yeah. And then all the discussions at the table beside were over in that situation, yeah. So sometimes it needs this, let's say, boldness, and really taking the initiative.
Thank you very much for sharing these stories. We unfortunately have almost come to an end of our podium discussion. Jeanette, you've raised your hand, so I want to give you one more opportunity to ask a question.
Thanks, Jannica. I know we have a few minutes left, but I would like to know, because you work in rather traditional companies compared to Google, and you work closely with C-levels, with the board members, and I can imagine that coming out to them is a different story than coming out to a younger generation. Would you say, hey, it's worth the fight, you can still change things even in a group of white men 60 plus? I had this discussion with my manager a couple of days before. Or would you say, okay, you should rather use your resources and your time and focus on people who are already open? Like, could you give advice how to spend time?
I mean, I think it's very difficult because it's a bias again. Yeah. If I look back to my time at ThyssenKrupp, for example, the board was only men, only white men. Yeah. So Mr. Hiesinger at that time, Oliver Burkhardt as a CHRO, and two other male board members. And I thought, okay, yeah, with a female CHRO, it would be easier. But then Oliver Burkhardt heard about my situation, and he directly invited me for a lunch meeting and talked with me for 2 hours and became my mentor in that time. Yeah, so he was really, let's say, supportive and openly interested in these things, and became the patron of our LGBTIQ network. And he had also the idea with a Pride Parade in Cologne and participated through the whole parade. So he came with at the beginning, walked the whole route with the group, and also spent at the after show party the time with us. So even those people to whom you don't mind, they can be really the most supportive ones. And even Mr. Hiesinger, for example, as a CEO, talked to me several times because he said, okay, there was a meeting, for example, with the board members, and I was invited as well. And I wanted to introduce myself to Mr. Hiesinger, and I said, Sarah, and he said, oh, I don't know, I know where you are. You're Sarah Ungar, you don't have to introduce yourself. And this was pretty cool. And since then, he came sometimes to me or wrote me a feedback when he listened to a podcast with me or these things. So this was really a quite incredible experience, even with the old white man. Yeah.
Yeah, I fully agree with Sarah. White male, elderly white male is definitely the most difficult group, but it was also to me. But I have to refer what I said earlier. I could somehow feel the fear they had in mind when they heard about, oh, Sandra being transgender, what's that? And I tried to go towards to them, to confront them with my new role, with my new identity, and talk to them. And that helped quite a lot. And because for them, it was like to getting the answer. What is it about? Being Sandra, being transgender, how does she look like? How does she talk about? What's different in her mind? Does she give stupid answers now? No, she doesn't. Okay, she's still the same. She's still a human being. She's still something I could live with. I could appreciate being part of the team, of the board team, blah, blah, blah. And all of that helped. So, at least to my experience, my advice would be directly confront, but in a good, positive manner, confront people with your new identity, talk to them and answer to them the questions you have. I always had one footnote. I said, please ask me only the questions you would also be able to answer. And then people did so. So I did quite well experience, I have to say.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, for not only sharing these pieces of advice and call to actions to everyone on this call, but for being so open and so brave to share your story with all of us in the call. We really, really appreciated the time. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining today, for asking your questions, for showing allyship, for being here and contributing to the different letters of the LGBTQI+ community and the allies that make us up.